Hey guys, Dan here. Today I want to talk a little bit about the rig that I've been using in the past, the Trak Racer TR160, and also give you a little buyer's guide of the Trak Racer rigs. First of all, Trak Racer has a nice Black Friday sale right now. I do have some affiliate links in the description. If you want to support the channel, you can use these links. You pay the same price, you support the channel a bit. If you hate the content, just go to trakracer.com or .eu and not use the affiliate links. That's also fine with me. But let's talk about the TR160. So I have been using this rig for about 2 years now, I think, and I've had only very minor issues with it. And also this video will not be your typical rig review where we'll film fancy B-roll of me screwing in the screw into the T-nut. It's more like a talking head video where I talk about my experience, what I suggest, what I recommend to buy, stuff like that. I mean, in the end, if you want to know how the rig looks, it's impossible to properly film in this room. Just go to the website, you can see how it looks, and that should give you a better idea. There have been some very nice upgrades to the Trak Racer rigs, like the front mount or the pedal plates over the past. So the TR160 that you can buy now is much nicer than the rig that I got 2 years ago. I mean, Trak Racer sent me all the parts to upgrade, so I have those, and I think they are great. But also I modified my rig quite a bit to accommodate all the gear that I have mounted. I have like a sound card mounted to the left and several stream decks. A lot of stuff for streaming that you will not need, so we'll not film my rig. We'll talk about the rig, how it is when you get it. The initial delivery was very quick. I think it took like 3 or 4 days. FedEx was a little bit confused about one of the packages that arrived a few days later, but apart from that, it's been very smooth. The build quality is decent, but could be better in some areas. I think some of the metal parts, like for example from the front mount or so, they are a little bit rough. I mean, it works fine and it will not injure you. It's not sharp or something, but there's definitely higher quality aluminum, like from Simcore, for example, but also Simcore stuff is way more expensive. But considering what you pay for these rigs, I think it's fine. What I did not like and what I think is not fine is when you get the packages and open them in your room, you will have metal flakes everywhere. Apparently, when they cut the profiles, they do not clean up the profiles and you get all those little metal chips or flakes. Do yourself a favor, clean up the profiles before you bring them into your house. Ideally, unpack everything outside with a vacuum nearby and clean everything thoroughly and then start assembling it, because it's really hard to get rid of that once it's everywhere in your room, because they like to stick onto the carpet and everything. It's a little bit annoying, and I think Trak Racer should do a better job at cleaning those profiles before they pack them up. Also, another thing I'm not a huge fan of are the T-nuts they use. Like, you have these type of T-nuts with little spring loaded balls or whatever it's called, easier to get into the slots. And what you get with Trak Racer are these kind of T-nuts with a little, I don't know how to call this, also a spring, but like a spring, well, you see it on the video, I don't know how to call this. It also works fine. I think it's a little bit harder to get into the slot if you don't slide it in from the side. I mean, once you figure out how to do it, it's still reasonably easy, but I prefer those. But you can't really use those with the Trak Racer profiles because the slot is a bit deeper, which helps with clearance for longer screws. But these will not properly work in these. I mean, you can put these in, but it will just wobble around and not be in place. Once the screw is in, it's fine, but the little spring ball here does not reach the bottom of the profile, and yeah, it's a little annoying. Also, I think the T-nuts they use seem to use a little softer metal material. I've had several T-nuts that I destroyed by tightening the screws too much. That might be just my mistake. I mean, don't over tighten screws, but I've never had that happen with other T-nuts, only with those Trak Racer ones. But apart from these few negative things, I've been super happy with the rig. I do think the matte black profiles do look great. They are relatively resistant to scratches. I mean, obviously now, after nearly 2 years in this and me changing the rig all the time because I review stuff, it doesn't look as nice anymore, and that's also the reason why it's probably the last video from this rig, but it's just normal wear and tear. But since we've actually had a few discussions about the Trak Racer rigs on the Discord channel, by the way, if you want to join, link in the description below, I thought I'll quickly go through all the options that you can get with these rigs. We'll start with the wheelbase. You can get the standard wheel deck, which is basically like a huge piece of metal, pre-drilled for most bases. Then you can get the TR1 wheel deck, which in my opinion makes absolutely no sense because you do get this kind of front mount look, but also the mounting options are like a wheel deck. So unless you mount the base upside down in this slot here, then I don't know, it doesn't really make sense. If you mount the base on top of it, you will just have less clearance for your legs. So I think the TR1 doesn't really make a lot of sense. but the TR1 for the direct drive mount is great. This will work with SimCube, with VRS, with SimMagic, and basically all the major direct drives that offer a front mount. So this is what I would recommend. It is 17 euros more than the wheel deck, but it just looks better. I mean, the wheel deck will just be as sturdy, to be honest. But if you have a direct drive with a front mount, get this one for 17 euros. There's also the side mount for Fanatec stuff, but I don't really have any experience with that. Then when it comes to pedal mounting, you also get two options pretty much. You can either get this pre-drilled plate, super heavy plate. If you want to drill your own holes for your pedals, you need a good drill bit. I've destroyed some by trying to drill into this, but I would not really get this. I would get the aluminum version. It's the same price, and what you get here is adjustable aluminum profiles with an also adjustable heel rest. I think this is the best pedal deck that you can buy on the whole market pretty much, because you can adjust the gap of these two profiles, so it will work with every pedal set. You can adjust the heel rest with these slots. It's really nice. It costs the same price. I think it makes 0 sense to get the pre-drilled plate. I can't think of a single advantage this has over the aluminum profile version. So my recommendation would be TR1 for the direct drive mount if you can mount to the front. If not, get the standard wheel deck combined with the aluminum profile heel plate. Then for monitor stands, I'm a big fan of separate stands because these integrated mounts are nice. They look clean, but a direct drive has quite significant forces and the monitor will just shake. If that doesn't bother you, or if you don't use super high force feedback, go with it, but I would always recommend to have a freestanding triple monitor stand. If you just have an ultra wide, maybe this is good enough, but at least for triples, definitely go with the freestanding mount. Then for seats, honestly, I haven't tested them all, but the two that I've tested, I would look at seats elsewhere. I have the rally style seat here, and I can absolutely not recommend this one. I think it's not sturdy enough. The back will deform when you brake, and you don't really have to use a lot of brake, like 70-80 kilograms of braking force. In my case, was enough to severely flex the seat. It was much better in the GT style, even though I didn't find that seat super comfortable. I think there are dedicated seat makers that make better seats, but they also cost more money. It's always difficult because you can't properly test a seat. I'm pretty sure that these more expensive seats from Trak Racer are probably much better than the cheaper ones, but I haven't tried them. As for the add-ons, one thing that I can definitely recommend is get the PC shelf. I think it's super convenient. I actually mounted my PC behind my triple screen setup. So you can route all the cables from the monitors to the PC just behind the triple screen stand. You don't have to have cables going to the ground. It just looks very clean. I can highly recommend this. I also have the swivel mounted desktop. Didn't really like that too much. The more you use it, the more loose it gets, and then you need to tighten the screws, and it's huge, and was not a big fan of that. If you want to have a keyboard tray, I would recommend to get this instead. That was better. It's also still huge. I don't know like for what kind of keyboard it's made. Maybe with a numpad or something. Huge. I wish there was a version of this a little bit smaller, but yeah. Then there are also several add-ons for feet or wheels. To be honest, I would not get these unless you need to move your rig a lot. This one will not offer any benefit over the feet that you just mount to the bottom. And the wheels, I mean, they are sturdy. When they are locked, the rig will mostly stay in place, but it will move slightly when you get in and out. And I just found it more rigid when the rig is just sitting on the floor. Was not a big fan of these. So unless you really need to move it a lot, I would not get any of these add-ons and just use the rig as provided. Then you can also get a rubber mat or a rubber mat with RGB lights. And you know how it is, the more RGB you have, the quicker you are on track. So if you get a mat, definitely get the one with RGB. And then you can also get a butt kicker mount. If you do not want to drill into your seat, I think this is a nice option. But what I always would recommend is take a drill 3 holes into your seat and attach the butt kicker directly to the seat, will be better. And I know sim racers are a little bit obsessed about flex, but I probably would not get the TR160 if I would buy a rig now. I would just get the TR120, save a little bit of money. With a front mount and the aluminum profile, plus the shifter mount with a long arm, you're looking at 627 euros compared to 670 euros for the TR160. It's Not a big difference in price, but it also will not be a big difference in rigidity. The important parts are the uprights and how they are mounted to the rig. In the past, there were some cheaper rigs where the uprights were basically sitting on top of the base frame and then only mounted with these little small brackets. Luckily, this is pretty much a thing of the past. Everyone now uses proper mounting technique to mount the uprights to the base frame. But between the 160 and the 120, the base frame is 120 millimeters compared to the 160 of the TR160. And you will not notice this difference. I think this looks a little bit cooler with a slight change in the base here. But yeah, in the end, just buy whatever you think looks better. So would I recommend the TR160, the TR120? Yeah, absolutely. I think they are great rigs. Just be aware of the metal flakes and clean the profiles up before you assemble the rig. And then it's pretty much a rig that you can probably use for the rest of your life. Is this better or worse than SimLab or other competitors? No, not really, to be honest. In the end, it's all pretty much the same thing. Whatever aluminum profile rig you get, it will be sturdy enough. You can easily modify it and adapt it to your gear. That's the beauty of 80/20 aluminum profiles. I think something like the TRX, for example, with these tubes looks so much better than these aluminum profiles, but it's just so much harder to adapt this to any gear, and especially like in my streaming setup where so many lights and cameras are mounted to the rig, I can't really use something like that. But I do think this looks better. But aluminum profiles definitely are more versatile and are super, super sturdy as well. But yeah, in the end, whatever rig you get, make sure it has all the features that you need. Make sure you think that it looks good, because in the end, it's a huge piece of metal sitting in the middle of your room and it should look somewhat decent. I mean, there's a new trend right now with those slanted profiles for the uprights. I'm not sure how convenient that is, because mounting to a slanted profile is a little bit more complicated than if it's just like 90 degrees from the base frame, but we'll see. I've had several rigs in my sim racing career and they are all very comparable. I think the only standout might be the Next Level Racing FGT Elite 160, but that is also nearly twice the price of these. So it better be a little bit higher quality for that price. But the TR160 has been absolutely fine and I can recommend the Trak Racer products. And that's already it for the video. I hope I talked about everything that I had in mind. Didn't have a script for this one. But if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below or join the Discord server. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel to not miss any future videos, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.